Welcome to the CE.way presentation about the responsible person for placing cosmetic products on the market in the EU. The part of legislation that covers cosmetic products in the EU is the EU Regulation 1223/2009. This regulation is also applicable in the EFTA countries. Let's see a few quotations from the regulation, which are going to explain who is a responsible person and why a responsible person is needed. Only cosmetic products for which a legal or natural person is designated within the community as a responsible person shall be placed on the market. In order to establish clear responsibilities, each cosmetic product should be linked to a responsible person established within the community. For the purpose of effective market surveillance, a product information file should be made readily accessible at one single address within the community to the competent authority of the member state where the file is located. Therefore, to sum up, a responsible person is a natural or legal person who has to be established within the EU. Without a responsible person, cosmetic products cannot be placed on the EU market. There can be only one responsible person designated per cosmetic product in the whole EU. Who can, therefore, act as a cosmetics responsible person? It can be one of the following: the product manufacturer, the importer, the distributor, or a person or a company designated as a responsible person by either the manufacturer or the importer. Such a responsible person has to be designated by a written mandate and has to accept this role in writing. Let's just emphasize once again that the responsible person has to be based in the EU. We are going to present some situations and explain who is or can be a responsible person in each of these situations. For products manufactured within the EU by an EU-based manufacturer and not subsequently exported and imported back into the EU, the manufacturer shall be the responsible person. However, the manufacturer can designate a person established in the EU as a responsible person who has to accept this role in writing. For products manufactured within the EU by a non-EU-based manufacturer and not subsequently exported and imported back into the EU, the manufacturer shall designate a person established in the EU as a responsible person who has to accept this role in writing. For products manufactured outside the EU and imported into the EU, the importer shall be the responsible person. However, the importer can designate a person established in the EU as a responsible person who has to accept this role in writing. If a distributor placed a cosmetic product on the market under his name or trademark, or modifies a product already placed on the market in such a way that compliance with the applicable requirements will be affected, the distributor shall be the responsible person. Translation of the information relating to the product, for example, the product label, shall not be considered such a modification. Here you can see a summary of the situations that we just presented. What are actually the responsibilities of the responsible person? The regulation explains that for each cosmetic product placed on the market, the responsible person shall ensure compliance with the relevant obligations set out in this regulation. Furthermore, the responsible person has to ensure compliance with no less than 16 different articles in the regulation. You can see here what each of these articles is referring to. Some of the functions of the responsible person are the following. The most important function of the responsible person is to ensure that the product is safe and compliant with the regulation. He has to ensure, for example, that the safety assessment has been performed, that the labelling is compliant, that the product claims are substantiated, etc. The responsible person has to immediately inform the competent authorities if a cosmetic product represents a risk to human health. If necessary,
He has to take any appropriate measures
to bring the product into conformity, including withdrawal from the market or product recall. The responsible person must cooperate with the EU competent authorities at their request. In the event of serious undesirable effects, the responsible person has to notify the competent authority of the member state where the serious undesirable effect occurred. Another important responsibility of the responsible person is to keep the product information file for cosmetic products placed on the EU market,
making it readily accessible
to the competent authority of the member state in which the file is kept, at his address indicated on the label.
He also has to ensure that the product information file is updated at all times.
It is the responsible person's task to perform the notification to CPNP prior to placing the cosmetic product on the EU market, as well as to notify the cosmetic products containing nanomaterials to the Commission 6 months prior to being placed on the EU market. As you can see, being a responsible person is a responsible, demanding task which requires expertise in various areas. We showed earlier that the manufacturers or importers of cosmetic products can also designate another person established in the EU to act as a responsible person for their products, thereby outsourcing this function. If companies do decide to outsource this function, it would be wise to outsource it to a professional responsible person who is an expert in the cosmetics regulation. Why could or should cosmetic manufacturers or importers hire a professional responsible person such as CE.way? A professional responsible person is an expert in the cosmetics regulation and usually also in other relevant legislation connected to cosmetic products.
It is his job
to keep track of the ever-changing EU legislation, making sure that its clients are familiar with the legislative updates so that they can keep their products compliant with the EU legislation. Manufacturers or importers can therefore devote more of their time to their core competencies and to selling their products. A professional responsible person is a single contact point for any regulatory issue in the EU.
Since he is an expert in the regulation, he can help to compile the product information file
fast and accurately, therefore enabling its clients to put their products on the EU market quicker. The professional responsible person is also familiar with the notification process, making the notification process smooth and fast. It is the responsible person's task to make sure the products are compliant with the regulation, therefore keeping you out of trouble. Manufacturers or importers might run into trouble due to not knowing the regulation or not having a competent representative, which may even result in a recall of their products from the EU market. Another advantage of having a professional responsible person is that even if importers change, the responsible person remains the same, therefore eliminating the need to reprint your product labels, as they have to bear the address of the responsible person, and to re-notify your products. A professional responsible person is able to represent its clients in front of the EU competent authorities, handle any questions from them, and handle any crisis that might arise.
He also treats the product information files with care,
keeping all the product secrets contained in the product information file confidential. It is also worth remembering that the product information file has to be kept by the responsible person even for 10 years after the last batch of the product has been placed on the market. So even when the products are not manufactured anymore, and perhaps manufacturers cease to cooperate with an importer who was acting as a responsible person for this product, this importer has to keep the product information file for the product for another 10 years. Last but not least, a professional responsible person is a neutral party, meaning that he has no conflict of interest with the manufacturer's or the importer's commercial interests. We hope you found our presentation useful. More information about the EU Cosmetics Responsible Person can be found on our website. You can also contact us via email or through social media channels to find out more.